Dobro. History. Archive.
So, picture this, a Friday night in Paris. In just 3 hours, a wave of coordinated terror sweeps through the city, leaving 130 people dead. And the final order, the thing that set it all in motion? It wasn't some complex command from a secret bunker. No, it was just a single, simple text message.
Right, at 9:42 p.m., that message goes out. And just like that, it kicks off the deadliest attack in France since the Second World War. I mean, think about that. That simple sentence was the digital go signal for a night of just absolute horror.
But here's the crazy part, the key to understanding all of it, the coordination, the plan, who was behind it. It wasn't found in some high-tech command center. It was literally found in a piece of trash. A single mobile phone, just tossed in a public garbage bin right outside the Bataclan concert hall. So to really get what was on that phone, we've got to go back. Let's put ourselves inside the Bataclan right before it all happened. It's a beautiful, unseasonably warm November evening. The place is completely sold out, just packed with 1,500 people, all there to see this American rock band. The whole city is just alive.
And then, suddenly, a sound cuts through the music. Pop, pop, pop. The crowd's confused. People are looking around. Is it the sound system? Did a speaker blow? Maybe it's part of the show. Some pyrotechnics gone wrong. For them, it's just an annoyance, not a real threat. But up on stage, the lead singer, he knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, Jesse Hughes, the singer, he grew up around guns in a California desert town. He recognized that sound instantly. He said later that while everyone else was trying to figure it out, he just knew. They were gunshots. So in that one moment, you've got these two totally different realities in the same room. A rock concert and the beginning of a massacre.
But here's the thing. The Bataclan, as just unbelievably horrific as it was actually the end game. To really understand the whole night, we need to rewind the clock just a little bit, because the attacks had already started in other parts of the city, and this created these incredible sort of sliding doors moments of fate all across Paris. I mean, the speed of this whole thing is just breathtaking. It all kicks off at 9:16 p.m. at the Stade de France, the national stadium, right in the middle of a soccer match between France and Germany. And at the exact same time, a second team starts systematically hitting cafes and restaurants. It was this wave of chaos that just spread across the city in a matter of minutes. Now, you might remember this story that came out about a hero at the stadium. The media ran with it, this idea that a Muslim security guard named Zuhair had heroically stopped a suicide bomber. It was this perfect, hopeful story, right? Well, the investigation later showed it just wasn't true. The bomber was actually stopped by a different, unnamed guard during a totally routine pat-down. It seems the media kind of created the hero that everyone wanted and needed to hear about in that moment.
The real miracle at the stadium, if you can call it that, wasn't a person. It was a thing. A guy named Sylvester was just walking by when the bomb went off. A piece of shrapnel came flying right at his head and was stopped by his Samsung phone. Just think about that. The very first attack of the night was basically foiled by a stadium turnstile and a cell phone.
But while that part of the plan failed, the second team, well, they were horrifyingly successful. You have these gunmen in a black car just driving through the streets, firing randomly at people sitting on terraces, just enjoying their Friday night. At one bar alone, La Belle Équipe, they murdered 19 people in a matter of minutes. It was just pure, random, senseless cruelty.
And all this chaos brings us back to the Bataclan. This is where the third team of attackers was turning a rock concert into what survivors could only describe as hell on Earth.
The descriptions from the people who managed to get out are just harrowing. I mean, they talk about a literal river of blood, about having to play dead for hours, buried among piles of bodies, and this overwhelming smell, this horrible mix of gunpowder and blood that was so strong you could actually taste it. And maybe the most haunting detail of all, it came during the quiet moments between the bursts of gunfire. A new sound started to fill the air. It was the sound of hundreds and hundreds of cell phones, all ringing in the pockets of the dead and wounded, just lighting up the darkness as frantic loved ones tried to reach them. Every single call going unanswered. And you have to understand, this wasn't quick. For the people trapped inside, this siege went on for 2.5 hours. 2.5 terrifying hours. That's almost 9,000 seconds of just waiting, hiding, and praying for it all to end.
Okay, so the very first police officer on the scene, he's only known as Commissaire D, he shows up armed with just his standard service revolver. He's facing an impossible choice, right? He pushes through those doors and goes in alone. He said he was met with this bewildering silence and a scene of just indescribable terror.
So he and his partner, they start engaging the terrorists, even though they are massively, massively outgunned. And at one point, during a lull in the fighting, while they're pinned down, they do something so profoundly human. They each get on the phone, and they call their partners to say goodbye. They fully believe they're about to die. And then, they went right back to work.
So how? How are all of these separate nightmares, the stadium, the cafes, the Bataclan, how are they all so perfectly connected and coordinated? Well, the answer takes us right back to where we started this whole story, that single mobile phone found in a garbage can.
That phone was basically the Rosetta Stone for this entire investigation. On it, police found a super detailed floor plan of the Bataclan. They found the text message, that ghost signal we talked about, and crucially, it gave them a digital trail that led them straight to the ringleader and the whole network back in Belgium.
So the investigation uncovers this 10-man terror unit. 9 of them died that night. They either blew themselves up with suicide vests or were killed by police. But one of them, the 10th man, he got away. His name was Salah Abdeslam, and he immediately became the most wanted man in all of Europe.
See, Abdeslam was supposed to detonate his own suicide vest somewhere else in Paris, but he didn't. He just fled. When he was finally caught and put on trial, he tells the court this story. He claims he had a last-minute change of heart, saying, "I didn't want to do it." It's this powerful narrative of repentance, right? The problem is, the forensic evidence told a completely different story.
Yeah, the explosives experts, they analyzed the vest he ditched, and their conclusion was crystal clear. It couldn't have worked. It was non-functional. The detonators were defective, there was no switch, there wasn't even a battery attached. So the crucial point here is, he didn't choose not to die. He couldn't have. He simply failed. His whole change of heart story was a lie.
So, Abdeslam gets sentenced to life in prison. But for the city of Paris, and for the thousands of survivors, the end of that trial wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. For them, it was just the beginning of trying to figure out how to live with the scars.
In the weeks that followed, this phrase started popping up all over Paris. It's the city's ancient Latin motto, fluctuat nec mergitur. It means she is tossed by the waves but does not sink. And it just became this incredibly powerful symbol of defiance, of resilience.
And really, that motto perfectly captures the challenge for everyone who was affected. You know, for survivors like a man named Arthur de Nouveau who escaped the concert hall, life could never go back to what it was. He actually ended up quitting his job as a banker because he felt like people could only see him as a victim. And that's the thing. The story of that night isn't just about the attack itself. It's about everything that comes after. It really leaves us all with a question. After the initial wave of a tragedy like this recedes, how does a city, or even just one person, learn how to stay afloat?